Hey folks, Valentin the Mad here, and today we'll be looking at the destruction in Stranglehold. We'll see the cool things it has, but also how the experience could be enhanced, and I should note, the vast majority of the feedback in this video is not aimed at this game specifically, but for a what if a similar game was to be made today. And it is the second part of a double feature voted on by the Patreon supporters. Supporter tier and above get videos like this 1 week early, and on the voter tier and above you have a say on what's coming next. Consider joining, that very much helps out. Now, let's begin. So, to put it very crudely, you basically have a whole bunch of objects scattered around on the environment that will respond when you shoot it, and the amount of those is gonna vary between the levels, so this is the first level, so the devs did want to showcase what they have in all its glory, so this one's gonna be more responsive than many of the other ones. One of the features it has here is those highlighted shoot me objects, just their whole purpose is just to get characters like, if I could time it right, could get that guy, perhaps. Yeah, so no, just made to deliver a fun action experience, and some things will actually have a little bit more of a physical simulation, a little bit more complexity to it, like this fountain right here. And you can see that, there was some thought put into it, so we have this particle effect, we have this decal to signify the water spinning out, and yeah, you can see there was thought put into it, and those small touches absolutely matter. So as I was saying, some things are gonna be pretty much entirely just for this kind of a, for a lack of a better term, glory kill. So for example, if I shoot it here now, I won't be able to detach it. Or this also won't be able to detach. Like, I can't break those to make that thing fall. This one also won't be responding, so there definitely are gonna be some limitations here. And one of the things I do want to talk about in this video is, if someone was to make a game inspired by this today, how it could be more responsive. And what can be learned from this one to make that one right. And I will say a lot. And as you can see, it isn't a fancy response, it isn't hugely complex physics simulations, but it is fun. Just throwing that air conditioner on someone. And sliding across the table, throwing a box out, gunfire, having many props that are gonna just break during the firefight. Those things matter, and even many games today don't have as many breakable props as this game has. From 2007. So I do find it to be very, very impressive. Now, to begin with what could be improved, I think it's some of the larger, perhaps, props could be breakable and have more physics simulation. So for example, this kind of roof thing here, imagine if those could break in the fight and start kind of semi-collapsing or fully collapsing, and it's just a way to take the interactivity further. Once again, not expecting it in a game like this, but I do think that if you make an action game with a focus on responsive environments, so it is entirely reasonable to not have those walls be destructible, right? Entirely reasonable. But you definitely can up the amount of props in the environment that are gonna be destructible, so perhaps a little bit more damage for tables like this, and stuff like that. And once again, as you can see here, just the amount of breakable props that are gonna be exploding or moving or breaking during the firefight is absolutely awesome. No, you jump across tables, you tumble stuff over. It's just a fun action experience that, once again, I don't have even in a great many games today, so I do very much appreciate it, and kind of mind blown by how this little thing was for some reason lost. I'm not sure why. Interactive environments do matter, they do make a huge bloody difference, and unfortunately for the most part this really wasn't taken further. Like, now I have many videos on character responses and I don't have a great deal of just subject matter for destruction videos, unfortunately. So hopefully that can be improved. Yeah, like, this stuff is just funny. So as I was saying, larger props when you shoot them. You know, like, there was this propane tank here. You know, if I shot it, if I had this table thing explode, if I had those spewers break, that kind of thing would make a difference. And perhaps the other huge one that definitely, if someone wants to make a game inspired by Stranglehold today, one very, very, very key feature I would talk about, and I talk about it in the character response side, and I do have to talk about it in the destruction here, and that is the aftermath. As you remember, it was a let's say a market with much produce scattered around, and you know, you had a whole bunch explode, you had the immediate feedback, but as you can see, not a great deal of aftermath. So you will have, there is a pretty high limit for the decals, as you can see. Like, those do stick around for a good while. Even in a fight like this, you might even have perhaps every single decal stay. Not entirely sure, I didn't do any huge testing of it, but it is possible. But when it comes to, let's see, this watermelon, see, it's gone. I shoot it, I have a cool effect, but there is nothing to give you a sense of an aftermath after that watermelon exploding. This too, as you can see, just goes right to the ground, and once again, I'm not giving it a hard time, because it is a game from 2007, though even then, like, on the PC I had, I did feel like I could perhaps push the aftermath a little bit further, but nowadays, so if nowadays a game was to be made inspired by Stranglehold, and man, I do wish for that, I do think that aftermath, debris, bullet shell castings should be a notable focus. So that, you know, you have all this produce, you have it explode during the fight, and you would actually have a good bit of it stay for the aftermath. Those things do matter, and once again, not giving a hard time to the devs of this game, not at all, but primarily for a future reference. And I want to do a showcase in one more level. As you can see here with the focus on the interiors, we have many responsive objects here. I do want to showcase two specifics as well. And as you can see, I can just walk around here freely, so I should be able to have a nice before and after at the end as well. So let's get this place be entirely trashed. Beginning with this table. Yeah, here we go, here we go. And there we go. In the end, as you can see that gong, you can ring it, you can swing it, and you can bring it down, which is pretty cool. So the first specific I want to showcase is those coins. As you can see, initially, you have them just go right through the ground. But you also have a few decals pop up to give you some sense of an aftermath, and you know, it isn't a be-all, end-all solution. It has its limitations. But perhaps in this game it could be used a little bit more frequently, and I do have two specific examples. The first one would be bottles, so come on guys, you can do it, you can do it. Here we go, so you know, you have the bottle exploding effect, and you could have just a wet spot decal appear below where the bottle used to be. Also, it explodes, and you just have a decal of spilled champagne. And if it was a wine bottle, would be even juicier. And in the previous showcase, I do think I could have it used for fruit, you know. You have the exploding watermelon, and that could leave a decal. I think it would absolutely be appropriate for exploding fruit. Now, another cool prop here is this thing. I'll show you it in the clean state, so as you can see here, it has many points where it can break, but there is just one issue that I'll see if I'll be able to showcase. Depends on how and where it falls. So, as long as it is standing, you will have it kind of like balance out. As you can see, it's gonna stick around, but as soon as the debris falls through the ground, you'll have most of it vanish. Which brings me to the point that if a game was to be made in this vein today, a key focus would have to be aftermath. And that includes large debris, all of the big broken stuff, but also things like wood chips, you know, like here. All of this, like, shouldn't just fall through the ground, and having those stick around would absolutely make a difference. And in an action game with responsive environments, that would have to be a priority. And he kind of just yeeted himself there. So yeah, so I think in an action game like this, made in the modern day engines, aftermath would absolutely have to be more of a focus. You know, once again, not giving the devs of this one a hard time. 2006, it is primarily a console game. As you could see in the character demonstration, PC was really an afterthought, but in a modern day context, yeah, aftermath would have to be a focus. And in this game, you know, for the most part, you go from arena to arena, so don't stick around in the same spot for too long. By the way, this is pretty cool. As you could see previously, just go, you would have even more brief fights, and I would say that this place is actually one of the longer fights, and even the longer fights. Don't remember a fight where you would naturally stick around in for more than 7-10 minutes. You know, you don't have a location where you have a firefight for 40 minutes, like a Battlefield match or a Red Orchestra game or whatever. So you usually go from location to location. And, you know, just when you move up to the next location, you could have a cleanup. No need to remember the mess and directs of the previous spot. And the other point of feedback, as I was mentioning previously as well, and I will reiterate again, is I would have as much, I would have the walls being destructible, you gotta have your boundaries, but I would have as much responsive in between as possible, and that includes this dragon too. So here it is kind of like a action movie running surface, and once again at that time perhaps had to be entirely pre-made, kind of like the unorthodox things you can run on, the things you can slide on, had to be pre-made, but nowadays, with more procedural animations, with more adapting animations, you could perhaps have such movement happen in dynamic environments as well. On things that weren't necessarily pre-made, so you could have this dragon be destructible. Oh, this can come down? No, it won't. So you could have this dragon be destructible, you could have the trees be chop downable, and then perhaps run them up and down if they fall in a useful manner. So yeah, so the focus would be just having as much responsive in between the walls as possible. And I would argue that nowadays a lot more is absolutely possible. The other specific I want to showcase here is actually the wall decals. So as you can see, Parallax holes, which is pretty awesome. So here I think perhaps just I saw that they look very nice here. Nicer than I saw them in the other levels, so Parallax holes are a pretty cool touch. And I should note that in terms of Aftermath, what it does very much have going for it is the amount of decals that stick around. And as you can see, there is a very decently good amount. As you can see, there very much is a sense of an Aftermath in terms of the holes on the walls, the ceilings, the floors. You will be getting some pretty cool Aftermath in this regard, even if it is a little bit underwhelming with the debris. A few final points. As I mentioned in the beginning, the responsiveness will vary between the levels. On some, you won't have much to destroy, and for this discussion, I focused on the more fun locations. And as for the experience itself, the focus in the video was on what could be improved if a similar game was to be made today. But what we have here really is quite nice, especially for its time, and I would say, to some degree, even for today. As I mentioned, the idea of responsive environments for some reason largely got lost, and I can't think of too many newer games that offer this kind of an experience. And that is a shame. Response on the receiving end matters, whether it is the character you are fighting against or the environment. Do we have just some surface level stuff like breaking glass, decals and particles, or can you, for the very least, transform the interiors? So, I'd absolutely love seeing more of what we have here, but until it happens, I think this one can scratch that itch to some degree. That is it for this one. Do let me know how you feel in the comment section, and subscribe, lots more to come. Until next time.